To have everybody here today. So check it out. I'm going to bring some energy to you guys. It's a little early out here on the West Coast, but we're going to treat it like we're on the East Coast. So I'm going to come at you with some energy because I'm really excited about this training. And so we're going to go for the deep dive of advanced production in Logic Pro X. Now, these same tools you can use in any DAW, but we're going to be featuring Logic Pro X and that kind of workflow. So this is called I Don't Understand. It's by myself and my good sister and friend, Chastity, and she's killing the game right now. And so we're going to be talking about this track. We're going to be diving into this track. We're actually going to be adding some stuff to this track as well. But I want to start from the bare bones. And one thing that I haven't done even on YouTube is showcased building a massive track from start to finish. So I'm going to give you guys a snapshot of how I did what I just did, and then we're going to migrate over to the full session. So here is a building block session. All I have in here is a few little drum kits, bass, and piano and Rhodes for this particular track. And then we're going to use our file manager over here and basically bring in things as we go when needed. So I'm going to close it for right now. So the shortcut for that is the letter F to pull up your browser. So just that quick, is lightning fast. So that already out the gate gives you a head start. So for this particular track, I started out with a basic idea, and it started with the Rhodes, and the Rhodes that I'm using is in Keyscape. So this is where this applies to any DAW. You can use this patch anywhere. So the BPM is 88. And so you can hit the letter K on your keyboard. Boom. And when you hit the letter K, you see this metronome pop up. So the first thing that I do is try to find the tempo of whatever it is I'm going to do. So I felt like 88 was a good space. So I started with this idea. All right, so that's the idea I had. I was just literally sitting on the keys, just going through chords, just, And so for the people who want to know these chords, it's basically all these major sevens. So we have the G major 7, and then we have the bass note over the E, or you can just name this a minor 7 and add 9, which gives you this, for the people who want to know. And then we're just going to take this chord down a minor 3rd. So we're going to add a tension, so which is the 13 here. So we have a D flat or C sharp minor 7, add 9, add 13. Then we have a C major 7. And so we have the 9 on here. And we have this in sort of the root position a little bit. And then we have a same thing, we have a A minor 9. So those are the chords for the people who want to know. And I'm just kind of following it with this bass line. So we can stay here for like an hour. So, but those are the chords, okay? So once you have an idea like that, it's good to capture it. Now, here's where this is where Logic is killing the game. I'm pretty sure you can do this in other DAWs, but we're going to focus on LPX today, or Logic Pro. So we're going to turn on our loop browser. You can hit the letter C, and that turns on your cycle loop. And then you can move this around wherever you want. All right. And you can see this icon right over here, this little cycle that lets you know that it's engaged. Hit the letter C, it's off. So I'm hit the letter C, boom, we're instantly ready to roll. So what's dope about Logic is this. I'm going to start this metronome. I'm not recording, all right? I'm just turning on the metronome. And when it gets back around to measure 1, I'm going to start playing. Here we go. All right, now we don't see anything. We don't see anything. But if you hit Shift R, boom, it silently recorded my idea. So while I'm over here sketching out stuff, it's actually listening to everything that I do in the background. And again, the shortcut for that is Shift and R. And boom, we actually have what we just played. Now I'm going to adopt the same concept with the piano. But before we get to the piano, there's something that happened first. This happens a lot in Logic. That first note got cut off. So you can go by just double clicking on the MIDI region itself, right? And then you go to that first note that got cut off, or may not even be there because it was listening, because it's cycled around again. But that first note is E. So you can go into your piano roll, go to the note E. Here it is. Here's the note that's missing. And you can hit Command and click. And now we can add this E in there. Boom, there it is. And it even picked up the same velocity too. So going into the piano roll, that's hitting the letter P. Boom, and the piano roll is open. Boom, 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 boom. All right, then if you want to use your notation, you hit the letter N. Now, I don't know if you guys are into this type of stuff. If you use this, then you can, but the shortcut for that is N. And then the shortcut for your mixer is X. All right. So we fixed that note. So the first thing we're going to do with piano roll, the best way to remember the shortcut for piano roll is piano or piano roll. The first letter is P. Boom, piano roll. All right. So now let's go into the piano. So this time we're actually going to record, and I'm going to double what I just played. All right. So same thing, we kind of got the same thing going on. So you can see this first E is a little ahead of the beat. Now, the way to prevent this altogether is to actually record from, measure 2 or measure 3 or measure 5, whatever works for you. So recently, as of late, I've been recording on measure 5 just because it gives me headroom if I want to add, I don't know if I want to put an intro in here or figure it out later, but measure 5 is going to be where I start. So the next thing that we're going to do, or how I came up with this, is we need some rhythm. So I've already loaded up some of my kits, but I'm going to show you guys how to load up your own kits in Logic. So we're going to hit the letter F for our browser. And then the best thing you can do is save your kit somewhere where you know it's going to be. So I have mine on the desktop. I'm going to go over here to Y Hunter Music Drums. Then I'm going to go down here to my Splice kit. And then here's a kit that I always use, this Cloudy Trap kit. So you can get all of these, right? And then highlight all of them. You can drag up and do it, or you can start with the first sample, hit Shift and click all the way down to the bottom sample, and it highlights all of them at the same time. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these samples from this kit and drag it over to an empty track space. And then we're going to do this to a chromatic map. Boom. And now we have the kit. It's just that fast to load up drums in Logic. So that's one of my favorite workflows. And then you can save the kit and recall it whenever you want. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to leave this right here, and we'll just name this Cloudy Trap kit for right now. So I already had some stuff loaded up, but we can use this new one. So I'm going to use this clap right here. So your best friend in Logic is the default samplers and the built-in drum machine designer. We're going to get into the designer a little later on, but this is the most simple way to do it. So we're going to add a clap on the 2 and 4. There's a couple of ways we can do this. All right. So we're not limited. That's one thing I love about Logic. So we're going to record this 2 and 4. Boom. So we have that. Now, a shortcut to automatically quantize this is you just simply hit the letter Q on your keyboard, boom, and it's automatically quantized to a 16th note. All right, you see that up here.
Mixing is a very, very hard art to master. I know because I've been trying to master this art for several years. That is one of the reasons why I do Mix Mondays. It's a learning environment, and every mix that I do, I learn something new. And I've taken everything that I've learned over the years and we have poured it into our mixing templates. Mixing templates are a great starting place, and we have created several templates that allow you to get up and going quickly, and we have created them for Logic Pro X. We have created them for Pro Tools, for Studio One, for Ableton Live, and so many others. So if you're interested in taking your mixing to the next level, or even just getting started, make sure you check out these links down and below in the description of this video and grab your template today. All right, back to the show.
So again, this is workflow stuff. This is stuff to help you focus on getting your idea out instead of getting bogged down with mechanics, because you can lose your idea and your inspiration by trying to figure out, oh, dang, is this an eighth note, this and that, boom. Have these shortcuts, take these shortcuts and take them to the next level, because I'm telling you, it's going to help you produce better music by having workflow hacks like this. So one letter, Q, quantized to a 16th note. Now you can change it and alter it to be whatever you want up here in your quantization area. So now that we have that, we have all this. We'll turn the metronome off now by hitting the letter K. All right, this is the foundation of this track, is this right here. I don't want to lose this. I want to build and develop from here, because this captures everything that I had in mind. So how do you take a sketch like this and make it to a full production? Well, this is where you have to you have to have a vision for the track. Okay. So I have this Keybase pulled up. This is one of my go-tos, and we're going to talk about templates, and we're going to transition into that in just a second, but I'm going to talk about this bass first. So I use this bass. This is the Mini V3 by Arteria, and I've done some tweaking to this and got it here. Okay. So we're going to add this bass line. Now this bass line I came up with because it's built into the sequence of. So I'm following that with the bass. All right. So the more advanced your progression is, you can find where you can slide your bass in. You can figure out, how you can create a unique bass line. So let's add that. Here we go. All right. So let's adjust this a little bit. Boom. Then we're in the game. So we got a good loop. That's a good feeling loop. Now on this record, I played live drums. So we're going to talk about that a little later on towards the second segment and more of the advanced full session. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is templates. Okay. So if I know that I like these sounds, I like this drum kit down here, I like this Rhodes, I like this bass. What you can do is go to File, and then you can save as a template. And then you can save this template to, wherever, where you can find it easily. And then you can recall this. So the next session, you can start from having these instruments. Now, if you want, you can even leave, the drum pattern if you want, where you already have a clap on the 2 and 4 like this. I would recommend even leaving some MIDI in there, leaving like just even, if you have an idea, even just starting with something like that, you can build another song off of just having that clap. That's going to help you a lot. Now, what I just did as a shortcut was I muted all of these regions at the same time. So what I did was I highlighted all of these, and then you want to go ahead and hit the letter. It's going to be Command M for you guys, but for me, it's going to be just the letter M. I changed that. All right. So we're kind of going to get into shortcuts as we go. You're going to be getting a lot of shortcuts being thrown at you real fast. So the letter, you can go into your file. We're going to go to Logic, and then we're going to go to Key Commands, and then you go to Edit. And then boom, here's where you can customize your key command. So I believe it's mute. Here it is. Mute right here, main window, tracks, and various editors. So if you guys want to do this, you can. And I changed the mute notes, regions, cells, folders on off with the letter M. Change that. So you can go in here to the key, and then alter that and change it by doing it like that. Very simple. Then once you do that, boom, you're here. It's a couple of things you can do with your key commands. So I believe your split at playhead, I believe is Command T or just T, I believe. I changed mine to slash. So you can go back into Logic Pro, key commands, go to edit, and then go to type in split at playhead, and you can see here split region and events at playhead position. Change that to slash, and you can really fully customize Logic to your natural, like what would you naturally do. So I chose slash because it's like, well, it's kind of like you cutting it. So there's that. So from here, once we get this, now we can add in some other elements to make this feel pretty percussive. So we're going to go to our loop browser up here, top right corner. Boom. You can just click that. And then we're going to go to instrument, and then we're going to go to shaker. And I believe I used one of these. Yeah, I probably used shaker number 1. So you can just drag that in, and just like that. Okay. So then let's say I want to duplicate this. There's a couple of ways of going about it. You can do Command and R to duplicate this. That's a good way to do it. Now here's where Command R goes wrong. Let's say you have a region here where, let's take let's say it looks like this. It's not all the way formatted like on the grid for you, where it's not an even amount of bars. So you have something like this. If you do Command R, it's going to be off beat now because this is not going all the way to measure 7. You see what I'm saying? So the way to undo anything is just Command Z. And so we're going to stretch this out. This ends at measure 7. So that gives us, the freedom to do Command R to repeat it or duplicate it. What I would recommend doing is you can click on it, hold, hit Option, and then drag it over to the next side, to the next bar. So let's say if we had something like this going on where it was cut off at a random spot and you want to copy this over exactly how it is. Again, if you do Command R, you're going to be in flames. You want to do the click, Option, and drag this over to measure 7. And now you have the proper spacing between the two. So these are just, again, workflow hacks to get you to that next level, because if you don't have these workflow hacks, you're going to lose your inspiration. You're going to lose your idea altogether. So we have that. We got a nice shaker and a clap. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some bongos to this. And a good one to use is go over here to the plus sign, and then you could just start with default patch, hit create. And then we're going to go up here to where it says classic electric piano. And then we're going to go down here to legacy. and we're gonna go to GarageBand, surprisingly, and then we're gonna go to the drum kits in here, and surprisingly, it's the hip hop kit that has the good bongos. Get rid of this reverb. So we'll just do that pattern. And again, like I told you, I didn't hit record, but I start playing. So we can do Shift R, and there's exactly what I played. Now again, with MIDI, and it's already, set from measure 5 to measure 7 over here, or bar 7, we can just go ahead and do Command R and just copy it over. That's where you can do it without thinking. Just Command R and duplicate it. Okay, so now we have movement. I have yet to really touch anything. A lot of this stuff is just drag and drop at this point because we have a strong idea laid down. So from here is where you want to, okay, it might be time to sequence. You know what I'm saying? So from this point on, it's like, okay, cool. So let me start with that. Okay, then here's my workflow. I'll take this, I'll option drag it over maybe a few times, and then I'll play around with some ideas and say, okay, how am I going to start this track? So I would go ahead and start with probably the piano and the Rhodes, or just the Rhodes. And again, just play around with muting the region. So I'll probably get rid of all the percussion stuff and just do the piano and Rhodes. Now for this song, everything is gonna come in right here. Now, here's an important thing. This is very, very important for inspiration to keeping development. I usually start with a loop like that, and then I say, okay, now I want to add things. I want to add hits. I want to add your lines. And this is the fun stuff. This is the part that all the gospel heads love to do. They take a loop like this and they start, effing it up. And there's a proper word, but we'll just stick with effing it up. So for this cadence, I did. So on this measure right here, I'm going to grab all of these, all of the melodic stuff in here and harmonic stuff. So just that. We're going to split at playhead, and then it's going to give us an alert to say, hey, you got some crossing regions, meaning there's some overlap with the chords. We're going to go ahead and split it anyway because we don't care. So now we just have a blank template right here. Blank space. Now we can add some hits. We could do something. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to move this over. Boom, boom, boom. So what I'm going to do here is add this.
Check this out. You can help support the channel. You can support what we do at Gospel Producers by simply picking up some of our merch, like our Juice hoodie. The hoodie season is upon us. We got the GP shirts. We got the GP hoodies. One of my favorites is the Humble Hustle shirt. Get you the Humble Hustle shirt or hoodie. You just type in Gospel Producers on Amazon. We're right there. And what I have on right here, it's our not famous but fruitful. I ain't famous, but I am fruitful shirt. The long sleeve again. We're getting to that long sleeve season, so you want to make sure you grab that. I'll link down in the description if y'all want to support your boy. It's lunch money.
See there? Then I'm gonna add the bass. All right. same on the Rhodes. So then we play it all back from maybe about measure 11. And then that's where I went into the verse. And so it's like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna mute the bass, boom, hitting the letter M, mute the percussion stuff and just the claps and maybe just the Rhodes and the claps for the verse. So it's coming around. All right. Now we got a vibe. So then what I'm going to do here is say, okay, for the verse, I'm going to extend that verse. So I'm going to do Command R because we have all of the regions evenly aligned from measure 13 to measure 17. All right, boom. So now that I have a duplicate version of that, we can use our loop cycle. And now we can add hits. So what I like to do for hits is I just go with orchestra hits, like just for a smack, just a barrel. I'll most likely go for an orchestra hit. So you can go to your software instrument. This time we're actually going to expand out. Now this is where this transcends Logic. So we're going to use the rolling cloud. We're going to go to JV 1080. I'm going to hit create. And so this again, this is the part that doesn't have anything to do with Logic. This is any DAW at this point. It's saying that I'm in it's saying that I'm in the demo mode, and that sucks. But we know the password. So somebody say access granted. Access granted. I am not restricted in Jesus' name. Okay, let's seriously get back to work. So we're gonna go to the bank. All right. And so the patch that I like to use is Impact. And I believe Impact should be somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Preset B, Bank B, and then we're gonna do Impact, which is 71. Boom. There's our orchestra hits. Really good. Impact. So my concept with coming up with hits with stuff like this is simple goes a long way. So I'm gonna listen. Then on the cadence, I'm gonna do a hit. Except I want that to be E. So we can do Shift R, boom. So there's our note, and then we can actually raise this up a little bit in the piano roll. So let's do this. And then we're going to take both of these and we're going to change it to E. Just like that. Make sure this is lined up to the original. There we go. And then let's check it. Cool. And the same thing, we can highlight these, or you could just do, I believe it's Command A to highlight everything. Yeah, Command A that highlights everything, okay? Then we're gonna hit the letter Q, boom, and now we have it quantized. So it should be nice and smooth. So I'm telling you, the piano roll is your best friend. If something happens, you don't always have to say, oh, okay, cool. Let me just, start all over and record. It's like, no, you can just fix the notes and move on. So we have that, boom. So we have our hit. So now this gives us some fun opportunity for making that, sound sexy. So we could get rid of this bass because it's, it's muted already. We're not using it. It's the same pattern. So we can get rid of those. And now we can add our little, something sexy like that. So let's set our loop sequence to go to about measure 19 or so, because we got to leave some room for the slide down. All right, so we're going to let's do that. Hey, let's get high. Hey, here we go. You see what I'm saying? Now we're composing. This is one of the main reasons why I love Logic so much, is because it takes you from a scratch pad, 4-bar little loop that we started with, and now we're arranging and composing over this loop. It's taking it to the next level. So let's go into the next bar. Now here's where I might add something interesting. Boom, boom. Okay, so what I did was I added this progression here. I was like, okay, cool. We got the same loop going over and over and over again. You know what I'm saying? So we need to add some spice to take us into the chorus. So this is where musicianship comes in. This surpasses Logic. Okay, this is just, musicianship at this point. What chops do you have? You know what I mean? If you don't have these chops, then you're not going to come up with this stuff. So do not base this on this is how it goes. It's like base it off your musicianship, okay? So I added this. So I'm going to add that into this cadence. Here we go. Let's get back into Logic. Okay, here we go. Here we go. 1, 2. Boom. All right. So then everything kind of stops there. So then we're going to add boom, boom in the rows. Boom. So right on this measure, beat 4, we're going to slice it. It's going to give us this notification. Hey, you're going to slice stuff that you've, already recorded. We don't care. Hit OK and delete. So we're going to add. Okay. We're going to replace it with. All right, let's do that. Right there. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Boom, boom. And we left that space open for the vocal because she has and I don't know why you love me. Don't mind my singing. All right. Y'all didn't come for my singing. You came for production. So, so that's the lick that I added right there. Boom, boom. Do. Then we got a little drum fill that's going to happen. And then it's going to set us up for the chorus. So we're going to end this segment in just a few here. We got a couple of more minutes, but I'm going to track out the chorus for you guys, how I have it, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to migrate over to the full session, okay? And that's where stuff is going to get fun because you're going to see like a massive session of all these ideas being flushed out on the scratch pad. Logic is a phenomenal scratch pad. So let's go into adding our bass on this. Now, once again, this is based on my musicality. This surpasses a Logic thing, so you can do this in any DAW, all right? Then we're going to get back to some Logic Pro heavy ninja shortcuts. So we're just going to add that boom, boom. Let's make it more sexier. All right, let's add that. Here we go. 1, 2. Actually, we did something unique there. The first time is actually simpler than that, but for this segment, let's just stick with let's have everything united together. So I'm gonna add let's do that. We'll do that instead. Here we go. 2. One more time. 1, 2. Had a little sour note in there. Again, no problem. You hit the letter P, go right into that note where it went down in flames. Let's get over here to where everything was at. So it took us way back when. So a way to avoid that is you can actually do on this region, you can do Command and U, and that gives you a loop cycle over the whole, all of it. But let's just say we want the one region. We don't want everything. let's just say click this. Do Command U, boom, and the loop cycle is only over this section. Now we can get into that bad note. So we can move this up. There we go. Then we're going to move this to D. There we go. We have our hits. So one thing about doing this is in the piano roll is you can play around with different things. So let's say I wanted this to be an octave up. I'm going to show you guys a Fire Ninja shortcut. So now we're back into Logic workflow. Let's just say for whatever wild reason, I wanted this to be an octave up, just these 3 notes. Right? So those you can get all of these, and then what you could do is you could shift option and up, and that takes it up a octave. So shift command down gives you an octave below. And then shift command down to put it back where we had it. All right. So that's another fire handy shortcut that you can use. I'm actually going to get rid of that one note in front of there. Boom, a lot better. Now you can move around these regions, get it to how you want. Boom, I like that a lot. Guys, I can't express this enough. As you're working, I want to show you the best shortcut of all, and that's Command S. You need to save your stuff. Command S. After everything you do, after everything you add, do Command S. Do it for your boy. You gotta do it. If you don't do it, you're gonna lose all your stuff and you're gonna be hot. Command S. You add something new. Command S. Make that a part of your workflow. Command S. Save. You'll feel a lot better about yourself. All right. So let's get into it. All right, boom, that's good enough. And then we're gonna go into our main section. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to switch it up. We already had that same progression like a million times, the same do-do-do, 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 do-do-do. So we're gonna keep the same theme. I don't wanna introduce anything crazy. I'm just wanna embellish what we already have. So I'm gonna give myself some headroom for some new stuff. So what you just saw me do, I'll break this down. I highlighted all of these. We talked about this earlier, but some people may have missed it. No problem. You highlight what you want. We're going to click Option and drag this over here. This is a fast workflow hack to keep you going. Now that we have it over here, we'll do Command R to give us some more loop time. So now I'm going to set the loop range around this here. So now this is where you're going to stop seeing me do a lot of this, extra clicking. You're just going to see stuff happen, and then I'm going to have to explain it. So here's what I'm talking about. So you might catch me do something like this, boom, and then all of a sudden the loop range is automatically over here out of the blue. Well, that's because I highlighted these 2 regions, and I did Command U, which sets the loop cycle around the regions that we're working on. So from this point on out, you're going to see me do that to get the loop cycle around the regions, all right? So for this time on the chorus, I switched it up. So I went from, then I added this. All right, to switch it up because, again, I don't want it to be too tedious and I don't want it to just be monotonous all the time. I do want a little variation. So for the chorus, we do same one, the E minor 9 to the C sharp minor 9. Then we're going to do a D sus. All right. The best way to explain it is just to play a C major over D. All right. Woo! All right, so let's add that. Here we go. 3, 4. Got a little hit. Here we go. Hits. All right, so we're gonna fix that little thing. So we're gonna go in P, and then we're gonna do this right here, and then we're just gonna hit the letter Q. All right, we're gonna start moving a little bit faster. So click it, letter Q, move on. P, out. All right, now we're gonna add some piano. So we're gonna move a little bit faster, guys. All right, stick with me. It's just gonna be a little bit faster. Here we go. Hits. All right, we're gonna add some bass. All right, one more time. Here we go. Hey. Spillover. So this is good. So clearly messed up over here. I don't know if you guys caught it. Clearly messed up on measure 25. So we can start over here, measure 25. Boom, we're going to hit the slash on that, hit split. Okay, and then we're going to go over to where we got back on track, which is, so right at the arrow. So this is to measure bar 28, slash up to there. Boom, delete all that. Put the loop cycle up to just that space, and then we're going to record over that. Then we're good to go. Then it's going to pick up. All right, cool. So up until this point, this is good. Usually for this track, I would have added live drums somewhere around, maybe ending this part of it. I'll end it here, and then I would add live drums like after everything is sequenced and stuff like that. I'll add live drums to get more of a natural feel, right? And then after that natural feel is there, then I'll add my aux. Now I may not always follow that pattern. I might fully track this thing out, add aux, and add all the bells and whistles and stuff like that, as far as like, you know, bells and synth leads and stuff like that. I'll probably add that, but then the main things that I would re-record after the drums are on would be my bass and most likely the Rhodes for this track. The piano can stay as is, it's fine. I don't mind that already being pre-recorded. But the reason why I say that is because the Rhodes is the foundation of this track. When it breaks down, you see what I'm saying? So I would want that to feel more like a performance instead of a loop. So I will re-record that. Now we got some moments in here where we had some boom, boom, boom. So here's where we can color. We can take our orchestra hits and add that in there. And I'll probably hold that last note out a little bit longer. So we'll come over here and add, yeah, just hold it out just a little bit longer. Right there. Boom. There we go. There we go. That's perfect. So this type of workflow again for me is best because I can always color and add and add some kind of stuff. So we finished this last course. Now here's a hack. So if it's too complex for you to count the bars and the regions, what you can do is you can come up here and change this to custom. Now you can fully customize your navigation area where you can see all your information, your location. You can literally customize it as you want. I preferably like it to be like this because I can see the minutes, how long the song is, like how long my timeline is, what measure I'm on, the sub counting. Then we have this to keep tempo. We'll go into that in the next segment because that's pretty advanced. And then I have my time signature set to 4/4, and the quantization default is set to 16. Now it says division, but really this is telling the grid how do you want to really quantize everything, right? So since we have it set to 16, I could change this to 8. And what this is going to do is our subdivisions, which is this right here, is going to be changed to eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you see that? So that makes it a little easier. Then if you just want the basics, you don't want to see none of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is really important because this is going to help you when it comes down to pasting things. Now this is on 1, 2, 3, 4. The last 4 bars of this, we have this hit on the last 4. So that lets me know this happens again over here, right? So with that said, now I'm zoomed way out because I'm used to doing it, but if you want to zoom in, that's fine. This tells you right here, when we get ready to copy this over, we need the last 4 bars, which means it's going to be right here. Now, I didn't play that this time. I already played it before. We can hit the space bar with confidence. Oh, wrong hit. My bad. This one. This one over here. So we got the last 4 bars, and then we're going to move it over here. Boom. Now we get to go. So that's how you can arrange stuff. Like if the hit happens once, you can copy and paste it again. This is definitely simple, but it is very advanced. People overlook repetition because if you have something that happens, you can just paste it over again, and it helps to the arrangement of the song. So I'm thinking about how people can replay this. I'm thinking about, I got a lot in my head when I'm arranging. So that sort of ends this segment of this presentation, production. This is advanced production from conception. We literally went from nothing to where we are now. So let's just play this all the way through. Here we go. Hits. Hit. Yeah. Now, I added a hit on the fly because I forgot about that in the original arrangement. But you can't do that in Logic. You can literally just go in there and just boom, punch it, get it in there, and and get on out.
Man, you know what's crazy? And you know what really elevates a track? Having the right drums. And speaking of drums, if you haven't checked out Yosh's Drum Warehouse yet, you're seriously missing out. We connected with Yosh, a 7-time Grammy Award winner, and we packed over 600 plus multi-sample sounds that work with any DAW and are perfectly formatted for Trick or Two. We're talking tons of snares, kicks, toms, and so much more. You name it, it's in this sample pack. So whether you're on Logic, Ableton, Pro Tools, Cubase, Bitwig, whatever you got, it's all here. It's ready to take your production to the next level. Seriously, go grab it right now. gospelproducers.com. All right, back to the show.
So we're about to shift gears. We are now leaving the musician mindset behind, and now we're going to become producers. All right, we're going to become producers. That's two different things. This session looks more like a producer session than a musician session. Okay, so let's get into it. So we added an intro, and the intro is based on another song that comes before the song. So what you guys are listening to is just a piece. Hey, Shabbat, that'll preach. It's just a segment. It's not the full picture. It's not the full. All right, let me stop. So let me add a limiter on this because it's gonna be a little low. So I'm just gonna reach for just something basic. Give me the L1. Just give me L1. Just for because it's gonna be a little low because it's kind of mixed. Here we go. Okay. Here's the intro.
Well, hello there. It's your girl Chastity here, and I'm so honored to be a part of this project.
Okay, so let's talk about this intro for a second. So this intro came from another song. There's the intro of the album, my album, that's happening. And at the end of that song, the artist says something. I can't think of what she said at the end. After she says it's a keyword, okay? So when she says that keyword, the drums come in. So that's the first thing. So since we're on drums, we might as well kind of dive into some of the mixing stuff. So on the drums, the performance itself is based on, again, I'm playing the drums as a producer instead of just a drummer. And I say that with grace because I know the song that just went off. So the way I approach this as a drummer is to introduce the song in a way where it invites the listener to be like, okay, we're transitioning in. So that's why I chose a simpler feel in the beginning. Let's solo all of these. I chose a simpler. All right. So as a producer, you have to literally say like, okay, how do you want this to be presented? How do I want this intro to be presented? It could be, you know what I'm saying? But I chose a simpler intro to allow the listener to be invited in. I also know this. There are new listeners that do not understand chaos like that. So having a nice, smooth intro like this it's complex enough for us musicians, but it's simple enough for an everyday listener. I don't think we think about that much. This is more of a talking segment part. So I don't think we think about this enough. We don't think about an everyday listener that don't know nothing about music. All right. How much information can they retain? They don't understand all of the. So it's good to have it for us, but for them, it means nothing. So we got to keep that in mind. So that's my concept with the drums, performance wise, for that intro. Like, why didn't I go, crazy? So now that I got that out the way, let's go ahead and let's break this down. So First thing I always do, and shout out to my private YouTube members, they already know what time it is. They know exactly what time it is. So I use the SSL-G channel. This is my go-to for my drums, for the initial drums without samples. I use this. So that gives us a really good sound out the gate. So I use the SSL-G channel on the kick, use it on my snare. This is giving me a real smack attack kind of snare. I have two snares going on. I duplicated the same snare twice. And so on the first snare, we have the SSL-G channel again. And so this is doing a couple of things. Let's talk with the snare on for just a minute. It's going to sound like, chaos going on, but it's going to make sense. So we have a couple things going on. One, with this is a complete channel strip, all right? So we have our EQs, we have our filters, and then we have our compression, and then we have our expanding or gating. So it's doing all of these things at the same time. So let's turn on the snare. We'll walk through this real quickly. So in the future, when you see the G channel, you understand what's happening and we can kind of move on. So let's just take a minute to dissect this on the snare. Let's turn the virtual mix right off. Okay. Let's talk about the EQ first, because that's the first thing you're probably going to hear. So your EQ stuff, you have your low stuff down here. There's the low end of the snare down here. So in this case, I boosted 9 dB of 170 hertz. All right, that's what's going in on the low end. Second, we have some low mid stuff going on. We have a bell at about 1.6. We have a bell curve. So it literally looks like, if you can imagine a bell, you can see this little bell icon. The more I go over to the right, the more the bell looks like this. The more I go over to the left, the bell gets thinner and it looks like an arrow, like a bow and arrow, okay? So we have this spread out to more of a bell. Then over here, we boosted 5.9 dB of about almost around 1K, about like 970 hertz. All right, so borderline 1K. We boosted that, so this is giving us body. Then the next thing we have is we left this bell right down in the center, so you have a even. If you can visualize this, you can see this is the full bell. So you can see this kind of like a half. It's half a bell. All right, so we didn't do too much on here. It's in its native state, so which is about 150, right in the center. Then we boosted 6 dB of 4.400 kilohertz. All right. Next, we have the top end. Now, the top end, it's going to be, I believe, a shelf. A shelf means there's no end point at the end of the bell. It just goes to infinity. All right. I'll show you what that looks like on a graphic EQ in a minute. But we boosted 10.6 dB of 10K. And that's giving us this sound. All right, that's the first half of it. This is a lot to take in, so that's why I'm taking my time. That's just the left side. Now let's go over to the right side. The right side, we have a compression ratio of 10:1. Then we have the threshold smacking down to 12.9 dB. Then we have our release on the compressor set to 0.36. And we have this on the fast attack. And that's giving us this smack. If I turn this off, it sounds like that, which means we're getting more of the decay of the sound instead of the actual transient itself. So when you turn on fast attack mode, which is unique to the SSL, it sounds like this. All right. Lastly, here we go. The last part of this is our expansion. We're using this to, when I'm not playing as much, it expands and cuts off the sound. All right. It's not a noise gate. It's not in gate mode. This is expansion mode. when I'm not playing, it has a smooth transition where it fades out everything else when I'm not playing. Check it out. See how smooth that sounds? Now, let's change this, put it all the way over like to the left. All right, that's more of a gate sound. Let's move it more over to the right. So it's like a good blend. So then we have the range, the dynamic range, all right? I have the range set at 40. And so what this is going to do is say, hey, I want you to recognize the velocity, the dynamics, the volume, the loudness. I want you to take in more of the loudness and then proceed to start gating it, or in this case, expanding it. Let's move this all the way over to the left so we can hear what it's doing. See there? It's letting everything through. Now, the more we move the range over to the right, the more it's going to cut it off. Check it out. All right. Then the last thing, the threshold. This is how much of it are we letting through. Okay. So this is the range, meaning how much volume intake, like how much in general. Now we're saying we want to control all of that combined and say, hey, now this is where the expander itself is going to cut stuff off, or shall I say fade off. So let's put the threshold all the way to the left. It's in its native mode, which means it's not doing nothing. When I move this over to the right, it's going to start to expand. All right, it's not, now noise gate itself is going to be very, harsh. Expansion is very smooth. Basically, think of all of this way from expanding. It's like adding a fade at the end of the region. All right, you cut the region off, then you add a nice fade, and it fades out instead of it just being, when you cut off a region, it's just a hard, So that's all of everything you need to know about the SSL. So now when you see the SSL on every other channel, you understand that all of this is happening in one space, which is why you only see one plugin on the initial drums, is because it's doing everything else. So with that said, we added some more top end on this snare using the virtual mix rack from Slate. And all I really did from here, I'm using some saturation here, but I'm not really using any compression, barely any. And I'm just boosting up the extra high-end frequencies to get it to cut through the mix. So that's what's happening there. The next snare is a lot simpler. It's just a virtual mix rack, but this one I'm slamming this super hard. So let's check this out. Okay, so we have the slamming going down. And then for the toms, now you guys, we already went through this, gave you the masterclass on the SSL. So on the SSL, it's doing that same thing. It's doing some gating, doing some expanding, and doing some EQing over here. And then we have some compression as well. So that's what's going on the toms. And then the hi-hat stuff, we have some compression. We rolled off some low end around 160, and then I didn't really do anything else. And then we got some saturation. And so on the overheads, it's literally the same gag. We have an overheads bus. We'll talk about the more mechanics behind everything in just a few, but I wanted to get this out the way because this is going to take the most time. So same thing on the overheads. We got some compression, saturation, and then we have the Neve EQ. Now I did roll off some top end on these overheads up on the very top, because I wanted the vocals to sit up there. So I rolled off that. I don't want the overheads in the way of the vocal. And I'm not using the revival, so I don't know why it's there. All right. So with all of that in mind, that gives us our initial drum mix, which is basically this. Then we have some samples, and then this is where I already know my man, the Rev, he's going to be all teeth right now because I'm using the Yosh drum warehouse from Gospel Producers. So we add all the samples in, and it sounds like this. So it's just adding some weight. My drums initially already, have a good tone. So I worked hard to actually tune the drums and do some stuff like that. So that's like the more time consuming explanation kind of vibe. You know what I mean? So let's move into the production now. Let's get deep into production. We'll go back into mixing last. We only got a couple more minutes, so I'm gonna try to move as fast as I can. So, programming. So in this section here, we have all of the additional stuff that we added. We added some bongos, cowbell, and the claps, and a big clap. All right. So all of that added in gives us this vibe now. All right. So now the production is starting to expand a whole lot. So for the bass stuff we talked about this earlier, the Moog. I had to do this on a separate track because I wanted to get it clean. There's no other reason other than that. I mean, if you guys can play it clean like that and then play the bass line, I mean, shout out to you. But for this session, I couldn't. So I just separated that. And then we get into the main bass line. So with all that said, we have the vocal chop that I added, and this is from Arcade, and you have to subscribe. That's output, and I used Hooked on this, and it's the Love Talk. Now, what's fire about this is now we're in full-blown production mode. You can literally have vocal chops, come in and come out.
Oh, 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 na 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 na.
Now I'm showing y'all the real sauce, okay? So I'm showing y'all the real deal stuff that nobody's gonna tell you. You can build your own custom vocal chops in here, or you can use these presets in here. You can go in here and tweak it, and you can actually tweak each sample individually, add its own compression, attack time, release time. I mean, you can literally go in and do some crazy vocal chops. So I used Arcade for this. This will definitely change your life, and that's giving us this vibe over here on this little section here. So it's important I encourage this a lot, to bounce in place when you can. We're going to talk about this. Now we're going to get into some Logic Pro stuff. So I initially recorded it as MIDI, and I already know the question is going to come up. So why did I bounce this in place? Because one, CPU, now my computer can handle it. It's not like it can't. But I bounced this in place because I can have more control over the audio than I can MIDI. So for example, like I can, mess with the region if I want. I can add processing to this. It's better to work with audio in general than MIDI when it comes down to flexibility and production workflow. So yeah, I bounced this in place, and then I did the mixing on this vocal chop in Pro Tools, but I bounced it as audio because, I initially was going to mix this in Logic, and then I changed my mind. Now, that's neither here nor there, but so it's good to have that. Now, to bounce in place, all you have to do, we'll do this all over again. So all you have to do is do Control and B if you're in the Mac, Control and then B, and then this allows you to bounce regions in place. Now, you got some options. You can rename this to Vocal Chop, New Track. Now, the source track, you can choose to mute it, delete it, or leave it. I mainly just hit mute it. So as soon as this one bounces out, the MIDI version will mute. I keep all the audio information, the volume and pan information checked. I do not bypass any plugins on it. I want to bounce it out as is. So then we hit OK. It's going to do its thing. And boom, now we have the vocal chop bounced in place. So if you guys didn't know that, there's a gem. It'll change your life. You want to make this a habit. Trust me, working with a whole bunch of MIDI is going to hurt you in the long run, especially when you want to do some fast transitions. So arcade, that's what's giving us that sauce. Now I added this in post. I didn't have this when she sang her vocals. There was no vocal chops there at all. So she had full reign to do her thing. And I sent her this to record to. So she got all that space. So I was like, well, let me add something in there to fill in those gaps where she didn't do anything. So leave your artist with space. I can't stress this enough. If you don't leave space for your artist, they're not going to be able to write or sing on it. They're going to be like, okay, just drop it as an instrumental because you took all the spots. So I sent her that blank that wasn't there beforehand. So please, when you produce, leave space for people to actually write to it. It's going to change your life. You're going to get way more work. So with that, I did virtual guitars to embellish the doodle. Yeah. Huh. That's actually not right. But you don't notice that in the track. That's wild. You do not notice that. That's actually wrong. But I used session guitars from Contact. So I started to embellish this. I'll just be honest, I didn't really have a budget for a full band, so I just played it myself. And it sounds good. So I used the Electric Sunburst. I used the Too Clean R&B preset in there. Really dope guitar. I really like this guitar a lot. We'll be here all day talking about that. So I used both of those. Then we have another one. So just chords. And then we have some distorted guitars to help emphasize that bass line. So we have. So we have all this guitar stuff. So you can't go wrong with this formula. If you're doing a live track, especially if it's gospel influence like this, you cannot go wrong with your standards. Your standards are drums, a loop, and bass, guitar, piano and or Rhodes, organ, synth, strings, orchestra hits, bells, synth leads, miscellaneous. You can't go wrong. So those are the main key elements of gospel. You will not go wrong with that foundation. Now within that foundation is where we're going to transition into how much needs to be within each family. Okay. So for example, the drums, live drums. Well, we got a 10-piece kit, darn it. So there's that. Then for the loop is simple. It's just it's simple. It's simple enough to make the rhythm section work, where we have this. Here's where a lot of people go wrong. You have 50 tracks of a loop. It doesn't take that, especially for a track like this. You don't need you don't need 50 tracks for a loop. The max that I capped myself on here is 2 claps. Now, why are there 2 claps? Let's dive into this, because this is stuff that people don't talk about. Here's the initial clap. All right. Light clap. Now, here's the second layer clap. Why do I have a second clap? Because this clap is a bigger sonic clap. You see what I'm saying? So we only have 2 claps. We only have 1 shaker, a set of cowbells, and bongos, and that's it. That's all you need, especially for gospel. That's all you need for people to comprehend what's going on. A lot of people go wrong by having 30 tracks of just, all 30 tracks end up sounding like this. You don't need 30 tracks to sound like that. You just need better samples. And a better place to get samples is Splice. You can start there. Splice.com has some really good samples. So we got to move on. I could stay here for the rest of the duration of this live. But ask yourselves, how can I get a fuller sound with less? I'm going to let that, we'll just marinate on that and we'll move on. Keep that in your heads as we move on through the production. How can I get a bigger sound with less? So let's get into, we already talked about the guitars. So why do we have 2 different guitars? Well, one guitar is playing this. Why do we have the second guitar? Because it's playing the bass line. You see what I'm saying? It's not 2 guitars playing the same thing. It's not a layer. Now, the only time we have something like that going on is over here, where we have the lead guitars that are playing the same part but an octave. Now you're asking, why would you have 2 separate guitars playing an octave apart when you can just, put it all on one track? And, since they're playing the same thing and it's just an octave up, because I want to be able to mix the lower octaves independently from the higher octave. So let's put this in context. Let's say in the mix, I want more of that top end. Well, I could just turn the top end up. Doubling the bass. I can control that independently. You can't do that when it's all married on one track. That's the only reason why there's 2 distortion tracks. That's it. There's no other reason outside of that, guys. So I don't even think I don't even use that track again throughout the whole song. It never happened. It never comes back around. So it's just for that moment to make it sound fuller. That's the only reason why. So let's move on to the keys.
When you got one of those modes where I don't know what to do, I'm stuck. You're right. All I do is listen to something like that and it's like, okay, now I got something.
Exactly. I have like every single plugin. But some plugins you be spending like hours just trying to find that one sound. You took the time to really curate and find like a group of like sounds that's really usable, that get straight to the point.
You're giving them enough to get started so they can walk into a room with someone and be like, all right, man, what am I missing?
I love the plugin, man. I think it's incredible. I think people are gonna be like, wow. I mean, you got the sounds, people looking for sounds like that. Look, now they just get the plugin.
You know what I mean? So you literally can just cook a complete record, like just from this plugin. And for me, it's like not about a whole bunch of sounds, it's about production.
He gonna come out the gate sounding legit.
Yeah.
Out the gate sounding legit because of something like this. So I'm telling everybody, man, get the juice pack.
It's the truth, bro. I got to have it.
It's fire. It's definitely juice. D-Lo got the juice.
So I use Keyscape. We talked about that. Now, why are there 3 pianos? Let's talk about this. There's 3 pianos in here. Because at the end, something different happens. Whole nother patch.
Yeah.
And a separate performance over this layer. See what I'm saying? That's the only reason why there's 3 pianos. All 3 pianos are not playing throughout the song. It's only for that one part. That's it. I just needed something else. So now the Rhodes, there's only one Rhodes through the whole track. So this is the same Rhodes that we were using before and everything like that. So with everything we mentioned earlier about the go-to, that's just a good template to have. Drums, a good loop, bass, guitar, piano, and now we're starting to get into your synth and miscellaneous. So organ. Let's get into organ. So for the organ, we actually have three tracks of organ. We have an organ bottom, left, and right. And I have that panned over here. And so my strategy with miking the organ is basically, to keep it simple, 2 mics on the horn area where the opening is, 2 mics over there, left and right, 1 kick drum mic on the bottom of the Leslie close to where that bottom rotor is spinning. And that's giving us this sound down here. All I did was just bounce that in place again to just have an organ track instead of always having to work with 3 organ tracks. It's just easier to have it one. I printed it like that because it's already panned and everything is there. So now we get into miscellaneous. So the organ is giving us a whole new, harmonic over the track, especially this area of the intro. Without the organ, it sounds like this. So now the pads and the Rhodes open up and it comes in the front of the mix. That's nice. But we all recognize gospel from an organ or a choir. So there's 2. I have an organ and a choir. So the choir I used is an Omnisphere. And I reached for a choir because it creates depth. It creates depth in the chords beyond just the Rhodes and the piano. Rhodes and piano gives you like the first layer of dimension. But when you add a pad, as you guys well know, in gospel, when you add a pad, it adds that sonic dimension. Y'all know what I'm talking about for my gospel heads. So that sounds like this. So this gives us dimension. Without the choir puts us in a space. And I'm using the choir as, believe it or not, as just like a reverb. Like I'm using the choir to give the chords reverb. It's instead of relying on reverb, you can use a choir and blend it in the mix, turn it down. It's not in the front of the mix at all. You can see how low it is in comparison to everything else. If I take this choir out in the whole mix, there's a intimacy that's missing, and that's that choir. It just takes the mix and it makes it sound 3D. So that's why I use the choir in combination of that. Now we have our synth, which is the Prophy synth and the motif. And you notice it's not playing the doo-doo-doo. It's not playing the initial doo-doo before every chord. It's only playing chord, 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 chord. So like the choir part, same thing. It's not playing the doo-doo-doo. So again, that's arrangement, knowing how to use patches to complement instead of everything playing the same thing. You see what I'm saying? So that's why we have layers of guitar giving us the do-do-do, do-do-do. Now we can just have chords, just play chord, chord, and it's not all playing everything stacked. So that's another reason why I play the Rhodes separate instead of just stacking it. This is why. Because now the Rhodes gets to play its own part, the choir pad gets to play its own part, et cetera, et cetera. So let's get into these ARPs. So let's shift gears for a minute. Let's shift gears. Okay. So this ARP is actually coming from Omnisphere, and this is Unclean Machine, and that's giving us that ARP. So y'all can check that out at your leisure. We're gonna shift gears. I'm gonna omit everything else. Everything else is kind of just standard procedure, bells, orchestra hits. We already talked about that. We need to shift into a very important part of this. So the drum machine designer versus optimized or chromatic sampler. Let's talk about that right now. So on this section here, we have like a mini hint of trap going on.
And there's something about the way you love me anyway, in spite of me, honestly, I don't know why you chose.
So let's shift gears for a minute. Let's just stay in this vibe for a minute. Just this.
And there's something about the way you love me anyway, and there's something about the way you love me anyway, and there's something.
All right. We're going to catch a whole vibe. So the first thing I did was I threw this 808 in here, and I already made this patch in Logic using the sampler. And this is a really good 808. I just used the one note. Jesus Christ. Cool.
And there's something about
there we
the
go.
way you love me anyway.
So we'll have to get into synth editing and designing on the next class, because this is some really good stuff in here. Long story short, I took one sample, dragged it across the entire keyboard, and that's giving us all of these from one sample. So you can take anything in Logic and make it a sample. You think I'm lying? I'll show you. While we're shifting gears, let's kind of mess with this track a little bit. So let's say this section right here on the Rhodes.
And there's something about
You can turn anything into a sample, anything you want, even MIDI. This is where the value is. So we're going to shift gears. Let's take the Rhodes. This right here, we're going to click and option drag it, but to a new sampler instrument. And we're going to do sampler original. And now we have a new sampler instrument of our performance. And I'm literally just I'm hitting one note on the keyboard, and then this is new sample instrument. That's a whole nother beat. We can explore that another time. But this is where the value of Logic is you can turn anything into a sampler instrument. So that's one of the main reasons why I flock to that. So just wanted to give you that little tidbit there. Now let's talk about something really important right now. This is some value stuff. We'll save the last segment for this. This is some advanced programming, setting up stuff. So let's go into the desktop, and then let's go into our drum sounds. Boom. Then let's go to Splice. Boom. And then let's go over here to Cloudy Trap. Boom. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this a drum machine designer track instead of a sampler instrument. Now we have everything on all the keys. We have everything here. Now let's say this hi-hat right here, this hat right here. We can go into the drum designer stacked track, which is this down here. And so fast way to zoom in and zoom out is to hit Command and then hit the down arrow, and you can start to zoom in on everything. And then of course you can do the pinch if you have a trackpad to go horizontally. So we're gonna kind of just hone in on this section down here. So we're going to get into some advanced programming. I'm not going to touch the keyboard. I promise you, no lies. Let's say over here, we're going to do some programming on the hi-hats, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to control click or right click, and we're going to do create pattern region. This is why I love Drum Machine Designer for this type of stuff. Now I'm going to set this to 16th note, which already is. Now watch this. I'm going to hit this arrow and watch what happens. Boom. We have a 16 note pattern.
And there's something about the way you love me anyway. And there's something about the
just like that instantly. So I'm gonna move this over. And so now we can go into change the velocity value if you want, or you can do note repeat. And this is how we can program some trap drums into this section that we didn't add before. So for this one, I can click and drag up or down. So we're gonna do, let's do 4 notes.
and there's something about and there's something.
You know, and if you don't like it, you can bring it back down to 1. Now for this one, I think I'm gonna do the 5.
And there's something.
Yeah, so 5 note repeats.
And there's something. And there's something.
Then for this one, we're gonna do 2.
And there's something about the. And there's something about the way. And there's something about the.
Then for this one, this last one over here, we're gonna do another 5.
And there's something about the way you love me anyway. And there's something about the way you.
Cool. So we have this section over here. So now we can right click on this again and convert to MIDI region. Boom. Now we're back in the piano roll. Here's where things get a little out of hand in a good way. You're going to hit the letter A, boom, and now we can mess with the note velocity. And all I have to do is literally click over here and drag down. You see this little line going down, and now we can have a swell to make the hi-hat sound more interesting. So let's solo this. And then we can even make this more dramatic. So let's do that. Let's bring this one back up, and that sounds like this. You hear it kind of, you know, the velocity is going down, which is really dope. Now you can program this to do whatever you want. You can do each individual note has a velocity cell on it. So say for that, like what makes this sound more human is I can highlight these two and just go into velocity on this side and just bring it down. So that's my secret sauce for programming trap hats, drums, and stuff like that. I know we're running out of time, so we're going to do one last bonus feature with our hi-hats. And so we're going to change this from velocity to, we're going to go to smart controls, then we're going to go to pitch. And then we're going to pitch down some of these rolls. And so we're going to bring this down a little bit right here, and then we're going to move this one up. So that sounds trash, but you get the point. It doesn't really need it. It doesn't need any pitch variation like that. So maybe on this one, we'll go back to note velocity on that last roll, and then we're going to basically do another velocity kind of little trick here. It just makes your hi-hat have more life and value to it. And this comes from, you know, being a trap producer, doing this stuff all the time. It takes practice, takes time, but you get used to it. And so we can add this in now, duplicate that, boom.
And there's something about the way you love me anyway.
And that's how we can program that. Now that's from the Drum Machine Designer feature. It's built in. The step sequencer is really dope. So once we're done here, we click the arrow. We're going to right click on this and hit flatten stack. And now it got rid of the drum machine designer altogether. And now each sample has its own quick sampler. So we're free to tweak the sounds individually.
And there's something about the way.
So I could change this to, change the fade on this.
And there's something about the way you love me anyway.
To make the hi-hat sound more tighter, more fuller. So we have that. So we could bring this in now. So I'm gonna bring this up where we have our new trap section.
And there's something about the way you love me anyway. In spite of me, honestly, I don't know why you chose me.
So that's just a moment. So now you can do this in any DAW, of course. You can do this in FL Studio. But I love focusing on a moment in Logic because it's like, man, we really went to a whole space for these 8 bars, and then all of a sudden now we're back to our main event. So the other stuff here is just, like I said, standard. You go on splice.com, just type in transitions. Type in transitions and you'll find all these, that's where all these really came from. Cashmere symbol transition, Cashmere symbol reverse, et cetera, et cetera. Splice.com is going to change your life. Now, vocally, we're going to have to blaze past this in like 2 seconds. So this vocal, I created a new channel strip for her vocal. You can see it's a Cali Blue chain, which is a chain that I use for another friend of mine. But
Bro, Yaahn Hunter.
Let's actually go to where she's singing. Thanks, sis. Love you.
I should be dead and gone in my grave.
So have templates. We talked about this earlier. So I have a template where I have the virtual mix rack first. I have a de-esser. Then I went to RVox, Infinity EQ. So I did more of a lighter, not as harsh on this one. If this was an R&B record, this would look more extreme. Then I have C4. Then we have the Pool Tech. And this is set to my gospel setting. Like 8K is a good spot to boost in gospel, as well as 2K. Yeah, so I'll boost a little bit or roughly around that same spot. And then CLA, one of my favorite compressors. Virtual mix rack again for some air, but I didn't use it. And then another de-esser. It's pretty much my vocal chain. And then from there is where I just add reverb and delay on the vocal. So my reverb and delay on the vocal is in the mix window. Actually, it's over here. So the reverb that I love to use is H-verb and H-delay. Both of those are really good. And that gives us our vocal sound. That's pretty much what's happening there. So yeah, it's the same vocal chain on the BGVs, stuff like that. But basically, with this advanced stuff, you want to take this and kind of go to the next level. On the description of this class, we talked about advanced automation. We did cover that with the hi-hat when we were doing all that pitch stuff. That's considered automation. The only automation on a vocal that I would do is do delay throws, reverb throws, special effects, or create a vocal chop myself. That's kind of it for this class. We got to leave a space for the next class because this is just a snapshot. Then we got to go into mixing and, how does the mix complement all this stuff? And then we also talked about sound design, where I designed my 808. I designed, some of my kits myself. Talk about, it's just so much more stuff. But for this class, I decided to use this song because it's simple enough that has a little bit of everything. So I hope you guys got some stuff out of it.